Hey, Abe, how you doing?
How are you doing, Ken?
Hey, Doc. Good to see your smiling face.
Well, I'm doing this continuing education program, so I get
Well,
totally
you're
fried.
you're you're a more honest doctor than me. They have
Oh,
so much continuation for all of us at work that yeah, I have three computer screens. So you turn one on and it's running and running all day, and you're
yep.
doing your work. Whatever.
I think my thing now is the fact that I'm teaching a lot, medical
Yeah.
students, residents, and fellows, and I really find that I push myself, try to be as honest about being as up to date as I possibly can.
Good.
So
My
sometimes I get
daughter is pre-med, looking to go to medical. I mean, she's been accepted to medical school through Truro, but now that Einstein is free, in a few, I guess not this year, but in maybe a year, she would apply there.
wow.
We'll see.
Yep. Good
Unless we're
luck.
living there, it's a straw.
Yep. I think we all have to. The way I
Yeah,
look at it, I think it's becoming eminently clear that
we are not wanted.
and contrary to popular opinion, we're not loved.
Yeah.
Oof. I was looking at what's going on in Scotland and those areas. Oof. Oh,
Yeah, it's gonna come
they
here
are.
too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's only a question of time.
I'm listening to a podcast that called 1840. It's the numbers 18 and then spelt out 40. And he has an interview just came up, or maybe I scrolled backward in time, I don't know, with Yossi Halevi Klein, who's kind of a religious, left leaning, old school Zionist. So a lot of who he is, I like. Maybe some things I disagree with, but definitely more I agree with him than I disagree with him for sure. He wrote a book, Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor, trying to explain Zionism, Judaism, Israel to the Arab world, um, and he really starts out and he talks about why October 7th is different. Why are we shocked?
100%.
Why has it shaken the foundations of Zionism, both for Jews and even for non-Jews, to stop believing in the state of Israel and this and that. And he really says it very eloquently and really captured what I'm kind of just mulling around in my head, I think, undefined. He talks about the failures of Zionism being number one, it's supposed to be a safe haven, that Israel's supposed to be a safe haven. And it's proven that Jews in Israel are more dangerous than anywhere else in the world, at least, in a certain sense.
Yes and no. I don't think. I think ultimately Israel is the only place we have. We don't have
You're
a
right.
choice.
And he's not an anti-Zionist. He's very pro. He's just saying, what is the shock that,
I
we
think I would
assume.
I would say from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I think that the shock for all of us, these were people that were aggressively involved with trying to create a connection and a communication with the Gazians and with the people that hate us. These were the people that have worked the hardest. Those kibbutzim had been actively recruiting people, letting them come to work. That's the part that to me is the shock. And
It's
it really,
it's to me more an irony of history. But I hear your point. Another thing he
because I
said I
think that
thought
the
was,
other side of it is the fact that I think it's a waste of time for us now to be talking and to keep rehashing this two-state solution.
Well, that's what he does. Even as a leftist, he comes up and he says, October 7th destroyed the concept of land for peace. There is
correct.
He says you can see that has no relevance whatsoever. And that any talk of state, he said, no longer means a state without the IDF having total jurisdiction over that state.
Correct. I totally agree with that too. I agree with you.
One point, I know Ernie just got on, so I'll stop talking here. One point that he said that was very well said. He said one of the shocks of October 7th, more than any of the other wars and this and that, he said, is it brings us back to that state of a mind of can we exist without a state of Israel? That for the first time you have a concept of of pre-state, of the War of Independence, of whoa, what just happened here? And it's shocking.
Yep. That I agree with, but at the end of the day, I also think that for us now, there's no way to. I mean, I don't see us in the U.S. I don't see us anywhere.
You're right. So for what is it? How many religious Jews are there in America? 1 million? I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
I think we're all going to leave. I think within a generation, most of us will leave, and that will leave American Jews to assimilate and whatever. But that's what I think will be. But I don't. Who knows? All right. Sorry to take up so much time, Ernie.
Yes, we're on Chaf Amud Aleph. Shmami no idle the Shmuel Damer Shmuel. There's a risk if a person has a note, an IOU, that somebody owes him money, and I sell that note to somebody else, but the owner of the note is moichel the note, mochel. So buyer beware. You buy a note, the maker of the note, owner of the note, can be moichel the note, and therefore he will have to. Of course, the guy who bought it will take the guy to court, and will try to get his money back. But once the star is mochel, the lova doesn't have to pay anything. Afilu yorish mochel, even the heir. That means the father dies and leaves.
So why would anyone buy such a thing? It's not worth more than the paper it's printed on. Well, who would buy such a thing?
Okay, most people are not being moichel a shibud. You're a business.
Would you take the risk of giving someone $1 million to buy a house and not get a deed that's worth something? You would never do it.
It's a risk. Well, but it's a risk. But he risks, if he does it, nobody will ever buy anything from him again. So there's always a back and forth. There's a risk. I mean, obviously people did sell notes and did not moichel it. And let's say you need cash right away, and the note is $1,000 note. You might sell it for $800, and the guy will collect it in 6 months. The guy will collect on the $1,000 note. It's worth it.
That's called factoring, but factoring doesn't allow you to be mochel.
But that's the concept of a star. A star has a shibud. The concept of shibud is a personal shibud, and the guy can remove the shibud by being moichel the hischayvus of that star. That's just halacha. That's the way halacha works. Okay. So basically, that woman, because we were suspecting the woman to do some kind of conspiracy, by the husband selling payros, predated, before the date, whatever, but she can be moichel the shibud. She's the one that has the shibud. She's the one who's owed the money, and she's the right to do it. However, Abaye Amar Filu Tema Lesel to Shmuel. You don't have to hold like Shmuel. The ksuba was dropped by the woman, which is clear there that she didn't sell it. So there's no chashash that there's some conspiracy. But Rava responds, if we're talking about She lost the ksuba, so chayshinan l'shnei ksubas. Maybe she was given 2 ksubas, she sold one of them, and this is the one that she still remains. The Abaya Omar, chad l'shnei ksubas l'chayshin, to such an extent that the husband wrote 2 ksubas, we don't have to worry about it. It's a very far-fetched thought. And Shrever Bismanu Torah, the other thing is a receipt is when it's signed, that's when all of the financial implications of the shoiver, where if, for example, things are sold after and maybe the argument is, oh, the receipt was given January 1, but it was really only paid 6 months later. It's if the woman did take land that had been sold before, she did it midin because the shoiver has it follows the date in the shoiver. Abayla tamei she'edav b'chatzum of zachin lo, that once the edim signed, that's when the hischayvus starts. Okay. Matzah igris shum. A igris shum is a document that Bezdin produces. Let's say a borrower has not paid up his loan, and Bezdin has decided that we have to liquidate his assets to give it to the lender. So they go in and they estimate the value of his house or his field or whatever, and we document it in a igeres shum, igeres mozum. That's a star that documents the obligation of a husband to provide mazonos for his stepdaughters. He marries a new woman who has children. He's required to provide mazonos, and they write it in a star. Star echlitza. A certain woman went through a chlitza process. She wants to get married, so she has to show Bezdin a star chlitza that it was done. Star miunin, right? If a girl less than 12, if a girl less than 12 is married off by her father, so that kiddushin is a full-fledged kiddushin midaraisa, needs a get. But if she was married off by her mother or brothers, the kiddushin was drabonon, and therefore she could do miyun at any time. She could nullify the marriage. So there's a star that's written that she did miyun. Ushtari birurin, which the Gemara will explain. Kol Maisa Bezdin, these are all examples of documents produced in Bezdin, Hareze Yachzir. These can be returned. Matzah b'tfisa.
Which to any party, to the man or the woman or the girl or the baal,
Yeah.
I mean,
To whoever,
you
yeah.
can return it to either side. It doesn't matter. You don't
No.
have to give it.
These are all one-sided. That's why you can return these. So, for example, a document that Bezdin has assessed the value of the borrower's field at $1,000, so that they know that there's enough money to pay the debt. So they give that, it's given back to Bezdin, or maybe it's given back to the lender. So he says, "Oh,
Right, that's what I want to know is, are we talking about, we say that you can return these? Does that mean to the lender or to the girl who got chalitza, or does that mean to the,
yes, you give
the
it
man
to
who
the,
did chalitza? Does it mean to the Beis Din?
No, it's only relevant. So miyun and chalitza is definitely given to the girl. She needs that document so she can go ahead and get married. Right? It's relevant to her. She's going to a new Rav to get chuppah v'kiddushin. The Rav is going to ask her, "Did you have chalitza?" She says, "Yeah, here's my document that proves the chalitza." Now, matzah b'chvisa, if a bundle of these were found, or bedluskma in a box, or tachrich shtaros, or rolled up shtaros in a group of them, hareza yachsu, you can return them. V'kama aguda shlosha, what's considered a group shlosha, kshurin zebezeh, 3 stars tied together. Rav Shamil Gomer Oimer, if Echad Alova Mishlosha, so you have 3 documents that say Reuven owes money. He owes money to Chaim, he owes money to Ephraim, he owes money to Yoshua. Well, those documents obviously belong to the borrower, right? Echad Alova Mishlosha Noshim, you give it back to the borrower. Shlosha Lovim and Echad, but you have 3 different names who borrowed money from one guy. Well, that obviously this pile of stores belongs to the lender. Matzah shtar ben shtaroisav. Let's say you're cleaning out your attic and you found old shtaros. You don't have no clue. They don't belong to you. People gave you shtaros to watch, but this is 20 years ago. You don't know who gave it, is it paid, not paid. You wait until you're Navi, and he'll be able to tell us what happened with this. If there were receipts, so you do whatever action it says in those things. If the shofar says this shtar was paid and it's now null and void, so we follow that. My shtar biruri. Hacha tirgemu shtari tanosa. It documents that describe the various claims of the 2 parties that are coming to Bezdin. Rav Yirmiyah Omar Zebor lo echad v'zebor lo echad. It's a document where each one chooses a dayan, and they say, "I choose this dayan." That's what a shtar biruin is. Then the Mishnah says, "Komaisa bezdar is a yachsir." Ahu gita dishtakach bedina dravuna. There was a get found in the bezdin of Ravuna. Daviksiv baby shviri masal dal rachis nara. The location was Shviri on the river Rachis. Am Ravuna. We should not return it because maybe there's another place with the same name. Go investigate. Ravuna is going to ask you what your opinion on this is. Nafak, he went, Doc, he investigated. He found so if every Maisa Bezin you can return, obviously we're not worried about 2 cities with the same name. How can a get is a document that frees up an Eishes Ish? It's Isser Veheter. She's an Eishes Ish if it's not correct. You're bringing me a raya from monetary cases? How can you bring me a monetary of Isser Veheter from issues of money? The cases in our Mishnah, a lot of them have to do with money. So Omar Tarda, he said, "You're fool." Those are documents that deal with this Veheter as well. A shtar that says that the woman had chlitza or miyun, these also permit her to get married. Haka arza de Beirav, a pillar in the yeshiva shattered where this debate went on. Mar Amar Mishum Delosa Didi Baka. He got embarrassed by being called a fool. Umar Amar Mishum Delosa Didi Baka. Well, you embarrassed me in the first place. So there was a debate as to why the pillar is shattered. Matzah b'chvisa b'dluskama. If we found the shtaros in a bag or together, you can give them all back. What's a chvisa? My chvisa. Amrav Rav Chana, chemas ktana, a small jug. My dluskama Amrav Bar Shmuel, plika desabi, like a briefcase. Tachrich shel shtaros or aguda shel shtaros. Kamu tachrich shel shtaros shloisha kruchim zebazeh. 3 that are wrapped together. or rolled up together. Kami aguda, shlosha shtaros kshurim zeh, if they're tied together. Shma mina, that this will answer a question we had somewhere else. Kesher siman, that if you give the information that these stars were all tied in a certain way, you can get the stars returned based on that siman. So the Gemara says that's no proof. Which they're not necessarily tied with a string, they're just rolled up together. Well, the Gemara says, then what's the difference between an agud and tachrich? Tachrich kol chad v'chad b'rosha d'chavri. Like, you take 3 pieces of paper, you put them one on top of another, and you roll it up. So they're all equally at the top. That's a tachrich. V'aguda d'ramu adadi ukruchos. They're not necessarily even. You don't even up the tops. Okay. So my machriz. So when you announce a lost object, somebody who finds it, and that the owner can give a siman, what do you announce? Or what do you say? So minyan, the one who lost it, says there were 3 shtaros. Well, if it's only a number, my area tlasa. I mean, why does it have to be 3? Afilu trei nami. Why can't you announce 2? From Ravina, Tover Machriz. If somebody says, I found coins, that's a problem because the minimum plural is 2. The person could always say 2. Achnami shtare. And if it's only 2, you'll always know, you can always guess 2. That's why they have to come up with 3. We said echad alov mishlosha yachzer lov. If you have one borrower in 3 different documents borrowing from 3 different people, then obviously they belong to the borrower. My boy Gabi Ade. Why would one lender have 2 other stars that have nothing to do with them? So the Gemara says maybe Dilma Lakiyumi Azli. Maybe somebody went to Bezdin or to different malvas to have certification, and they lost it in Bezdin. So the Makaimi, these are already Makuyomi. The Dilma Mida de Safra Nafil. The Sofer has to write these. Maybe he was dropped from the Sofer's place. Lo mashi inish kiyuma biyada de Safra. Nobody's going to keep a star with a Sofer for very long. So it's clearly that it belongs to the borrower. Then we said Shlosha Shalavu Me'acher Yachzer L'malveh. 3 different names borrowed money from the same lender. Obviously, you return those 3 staros to the lender. My boy Gabi, why would a borrower have 2 stars that have nothing to do with it? So the Gemara says, Dilma lemichlevinu azli. Maybe the 3 borrowers went to the Sofer together, and they had him written, and then they all lost it. Oh, there were 3 different Sofers. You could see that they're different handwritings. Maybe they went to Bezdin, Dilma L'Kiyumani, Ozli, they went to Bezdin, and it fell from Bezdin. Malva Makayim Shtori. Who is Makayim Shtori? The Malva, not the Lova. Lova lo Makayim Shtori. So therefore, all of those suspicions fall away. Then we said if you find Shtaros in a attic somewhere, and they have other documents like a receipt, we follow the other document. We're talking about a document that a lender would hold on to. Even though it's written in the Malva's handwriting, Ein ela k'mischak u'pasul. We can't rely on it. And lo maboy kosu b'ksav yad sofer. Certainly we don't rely on it if all we have is the handwriting of the sofer. Perhaps the sofer was pre-preparing receipts so that the receipt would be ready, that when the borrower pays it off, the malva could, but maybe it hadn't really been paid off. But afilu kosu b'ksav yado, even if it was written in the handwriting of the lender himself, pasul. He's also worried that maybe the bar will show up on the last possible moment, Erev Shabbos wants to pay me. If I don't have a receipt, he won't give me the money. So I'm going to prepare receipts. So when he gives me back the money, I can give him the receipt. Our Mishnah, our Mishnah says you do give it back. So, Kida Omer of Safra, Sheninsa bin Shtaros Kruim. Oh, these stars were ripped up, and there was a receipt. Oh, in that case, you can rely on that it was paid and it was torn up. Achanami Shematza bin Shtaros Kruim. So, Nimsa lecha bin Shtarosov. If a certain note was found with his shtaros, and it's a shtar shel Shimon shel Yosef ben Shimon Parua, this star was paid off, and it's a place where there's two Yosef and Shimons, shtaros shneim, and each one is claiming that it's their receipt, that they paid it. We say that we view them as both paid off, because we follow the symptom. Again, the reason we follow it, they're both stars were torn up. Toshma. When Yisomim, who lost their father, are going to collect a debt from other Yisomim, they have to say Shvur Shelo Pikdono Abba Mitzavosov, that this was not a pikod that he was holding on to, V'shalom Lano Abba, that it was paid, V'shalom Atzano Ben Shtaros V'shalaba Shtar Zer Parua. There were no other documents that said that shtar was paid. They have to take these three shvuas, implying that if the simpon was found with the shtars of the father, it's good proof that it was paid. Why? Again, it was found among shtars that were torn up. Toshma, simpon sheyeshalav edim iskayim bechosma. If you have a receipt with edim, you follow the edim, even if you find it in the hands of the malva. So you see, we do makayim what's written. So ema yiskayim bechosma, the shalim lusadi per. We have to get witnesses that on their signature or that it was paid. Okay, we'll stop here. So I'm gonna sign off because Mario's not here. Yeah, he told me to sign off and then sign back on again. I'm gonna stop the recording. I can figure out how to do that.